So where are we with the current state of renewables and batteries? And how much further have we got to go? All energy is not created equal. This can leave comparisons and cumulative data trends prone to manipulation and distortion by those with underlying agendas. You could see a graphic like this and just get very depressed. I mean, the mountain seems insurmountable and nothing has changed over the last 10 years. With the exception of nuclear, everything grew capacity between 2009 and 2019, just as it did between 1999 and 2009. And we knew climate change was a thing. But fossil fuels grew total production from 116,000 to 137,000 terawatt hours in the last 10 years. So it really does feel like, well, they're just taking the piss. But anyway, that graphic does not hold the whole truth, however. It is carrying distortions from the inefficiency of fossil fuels to generate electricity and run motor vehicles. 1 kilowatt of gas that produces electricity at a power station does not give you back 1 kilowatt of electricity. But that same 1 kilowatt of gas when heating your home does give you 1 kilowatt of energy. Replacing fossil fuel electricity generation, therefore, is the easy win. We only have to produce a fraction of the same electricity with renewables to replace entire power stations. So, using some clever calculations, you can work out that 1 kilowatt hour of renewable electricity can replace 2.6 kilowatt hours of coal at a power station, 1.7 kilowatt hours of gas at a power station, 2.5 kilowatt hours of petrol, gasoline or diesel in road transport, but with gas and oil for heating, well, 1 kilowatt equals 1 kilowatt. So when you reshuffle the data in line with the end use scenarios for it all, it starts to look more like this graphic. We see that in 2019, almost 16%, 15.7 to be precise, of global primal energy came from low carbon sources such as nuclear energy, hydro, wind, solar, bioenergy, geothermal, wave and tidal. 11.4% came from renewables and 4.3% from nuclear. Hydropower has been a constant for decades and was a proven technology even in the first year of this data back in 1965. It was already producing 923 terawatt hours, and by 2020 it had grown to over 4,000. But it is not without its own environmental concerns, and many of the easiest locations have been used up because, well, it's been around for so long and is relatively easy to do. So it may grow slowly in the future, but not at the same rate as wind, solar and batteries. I think this one really hammers home where we are on our journey and what we have left to do though. As you can see, it is a sad fact that the wind produces just 2.2% and solar 1.1% of our global energy needs. And that does indeed seem pitiful. But they are really just a decade old if we are truthful. And we are just getting to the point where the technology is proven and the manufacturing processes have been perfected. So they will get cheaper, better and more efficient very quickly. And if we zoom in on the data, we can see both sources are growing quickly, exponentially indeed. Solar has dropped in cost by over 80% in the 2010s and is predicted to drop at least another 70% in the next decade. Wind has dropped 46% and will likely drop another 43%, and batteries dropped by 87% and will drop by another 80% at least. Cheaper prices will just mean that more investment is made as others seek to stay in touch. This will keep an exponential growth rate until the market saturation has been reached and the profit margins are reduced. By then, they will control the majority of the market, maybe even over 80%. And that could happen quicker than many people realise. In 2019, around 11% of global primary energy came from renewable technologies. Energy consumption represents the sum of electricity, transport and heating. But when we look at the making of electricity, around 25% comes from renewables, and that is changing fast. If we look at this graphic here, do those curves of wind and solar look familiar? These are new technologies coming of age, reaping the rewards of high production rates and lots of research and development investment, and they are going exponential. So what could they achieve? Let's look at some figures. Solar was at 1,793 terawatt hours and wind was at 3,540 terawatt hours. This compares to coal at 44,000, oil at almost 54,000 and gas at over 32,000. And yes, the task seems insurmountable. But these are new technologies still perfecting their production and working towards economies of scale, and their growth rate is just at the beginning of the exponential curve. So let's start the figures in 2019 and I will roll some projected growth rates through to 2030 and let's see what comes forth. I predict we could even see wind at over 26,000 terawatt hours, with solar not far behind at over 20,000, even by 2025. And by 2030, those figures could be over 143,000 terawatt hours for wind and over 155,000 terawatt hours for solar. Just as a matter of interest, I have used a 50% cumulative growth rate for solar and 40% for wind because I predict slightly faster growth for solar over wind. These figures show that we could easily replace all our energy needs by the end of this decade, and the excess will easily allow us to plan for the periods of low generation. Once the race begins in earnest, those still tying their shoelaces will have already lost the game. It is about to become the new golden age, as new ways rise up to replace the flawed systems we did have. Opportunity will flourish. As these volumes enter the market, refinement in design and application will make them ever cheaper, and they already outcompete in over 90% of new installations globally against all different fossil fuels. We are seeing solar installations approaching $20 per megawatt, with wind around $40 and both declining year on year. This compares with coal, which hovers between 61 and 112, gas, which is 59 to 100 on baseload and 175 on peaker. So we already know why this is. Fossil fuels cannot compete. Solar and wind, even with batteries included, is far cheaper than any of them. This is just the way it is. We have seen 80% drops in the cost of solar and renewables over the last decade, and we will likely see much the same again in the next one. Wind and solar could well get below $20 or even $10 per megawatt. So how about batteries, the other end of the energy bargain? We produce a bit extra and store it away for times of need. Indeed, we have just seen power cuts for days in both the USA and the UK recently. If people had solar or heat source pumps and batteries, they could have kept the essentials going until the main supply was fixed. We can see here how the price of lithium batteries fell by 97% between 1991 and 2018. From over $7,500 per kilowatt to under 180, and Tesla are thought to be around 100 to 120 in late 2021, with a roadmap down to $50 within a year or two. So this is not slowing down, and all the time newer architectures and chemistries will be chasing hard to prove they are even better. So this may never slow down. Total installed battery storage capacity globally stood at around 17 gigawatts as of the end of 2020. But Tesla have two huge gigafactories set to open before 2022 and more planned, with a new battery architecture to get more batteries using less energy in less factory space and with less waste, which will see volumes increase even further in the next few years. Globally, 5 gigawatts of storage capacity was added in 2020, led by China with 1.6 gigawatts and the United States with 1.5 gigawatts. The rest was in Europe, South Korea and Japan. So there is great growth potential in the rest of the world to get where we need to go as quickly as possible. The number of new giga-style factories in planning and construction for the next few years from many different companies is incredible. Batteries are getting produced faster, cheaper and in greater quantities than ever before, and their recycling to capture all the valuable materials is becoming a serious issue. But it's not rocket science, and by the time recycling becomes an issue, it will be ready. One small point many haters miss is that batteries from old cars get reused in alternative projects where they can have their useful lifespan extended. Cars are very demanding in ways that other uses such as home and utility storage are not. If we use a standard exponential growth rate of 50% again, as we did with solar earlier, you might think we are being mad, and the figures would come out at over 800 gigawatts of storage by 2030, and that sounds like a lot. But if you cast your mind back to this graphic from earlier, Tesla by themselves are planning for 3 terawatt hours of production capacity each year by 2030. So as you can see, the growth in this sector is set to go crazy. And I can easily foresee installed capacity well into the 10s or 20s of terawatt hours and adding over 5 terawatt hours per year and growing. We know that with many new technologies we see an S-curve as they quickly outcompete before slowing off as they approach market saturation. This is where we are in the exponential of these adoptions, and it will not slow down now before reaching about 80% market saturation, and it takes over as the establishment. So I do not think it is unrealistic to expect over 2 or even 300,000 terawatt hours of wind and solar by 2030, supported by over 20 terawatt hours of storage, which is being added to in excess of 5 terawatt hours per year and rising fast. And you know what all this has triggered? It is the gradual decline in the dominance of the old legacy industries. They have not only failed to see the coming storm, but their very value systems are being questioned by a new generation of consumers who expect more from those they deal with. And as the economies of scale decline, the unit price increases, the market shrinks, economies shrink further, less profit, higher costs, whilst the new young upstarts will only ever keep getting cheaper year on year. The thing is, you see, the dice has been thrown, and we all know the end goal is carbon zero now. That is no longer a debate, just how quickly it can be attained. The race is now on to be among the first great leaders in the brave new world. This will foster innovation ever faster, and hopefully we can achieve what is easily possible by my projections. We just need to start pricing assets correctly and pollutants fairly, so the rape and pillage of so much land comes to an end, and we adopt more sustainable, egalitarian and equal ways of working with the planet and each other, not against. Obviously, there are large corporations with huge budgets and friends in very high places who do not wish this scenario. Every day they can stretch it out just a little bit, adds millions to their personal retirement fund, but makes our cleanup job ever more difficult. So we have to vote with our actions by not supporting politicians and companies who do not get it, and support the ones doing the right thing. Reward the visionaries and we will get more of them making our lives better. So, what do you think of where we are and how fast we could get there? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support this channel, hit the like button about here. And subscribe to the channel by clicking this button just here. That is much appreciated. Have a great day and thank you for dropping by.